I've never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings.
Dude, that's pretty cool.
Man, that is a sad clown.
Dude, that's pretty good.
This is The Gloom, bringing you weekly interviews with F3 Omaha PAX, exploring their F3 experiences and finding those sticky elements that create the glue in the gloom.
So today on The Gloom, we've got a very special man. He's actually in our RESPECT group, former Site Q of the district, and has become a really good friend of mine just through some other groups in town, through churches, and also recently helping out my new 1-month-old daughter with some health issues. So I'd like to welcome Chiclets to the show, and as we like to do, Chiclets, why don't you give us just a history on how you got started, who brought you out, and some people probably know, but where the name Chiclets comes from.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Plague and Pony. It's an honor to be asked to be on The Gloom, on this podcast. I've listened to them all, and you've had some awesome podcasts, and it's almost like an extended COT, and you really get to know these guys. So I have enjoyed the podcast very much so I appreciate the opportunity. So coming across F3, obviously Khakis and I go way back to rugby days, and Khakis and I have known each other since when I was in dental school, so it's 30 years now. And he had been EHing me, I forgot when he started, but he had been EHing me for quite a while. And I slowly saw Khakis go through changes, not just physically, but spiritually and emotionally, that this guy was kind of improving a lot of qualities that maybe he was at fault with before. And he became more fit, and it was just great to see him in that transformation. But he was constantly EHing me, not real hard. He'd ask me like, "Hey, what are you doing for a workout?" Well, I'm going to the gym. He knew that. And I was like, "Yeah, I'll make it one of these days. I'll let you know when I'm ready." And then I ran into I had ankle surgery, and I was like, "Well, I can't run." I was in like a boot and everything. And once I recovered from that, I kind of hit the streets. I like to run on my own, and I hit the streets, and it had to be a Friday, and I was running down Pacific, and I was running towards West Side School, and I was actually turned around at 84th. Was coming back, and at a stoplight, I stopped and I look over, and there he's in his truck, and this is in the morning. So he must have been coming back from the woodshed or something. Rolls down his window, and he just is yelling at me, "You got to get to F3. So, I called him that weekend. I said, "Hey, I think I'm ready to post. Where should I go Monday?" He's like, "We're doing the Murph district." He goes, "Are you serious?" I said, "Why?" He goes, "That's the one day that I'm going to be out of town." So I said, "That's okay. I'll go. I don't know anyone, but I'll hit it." He's like, "Go figure. I've been EHing you for a couple years or a year now, and you're finally going to go, and I'm not going to be there." I'm like, "That's all right. I can make." He's like, "Yeah, you'll do good." He goes, "Just go and show up this time." So I showed up, and I did the Murph, my first posting. So how did I get the name? I think Bubbles was queuing. Tater Tot was the other site queue. So when it came time for me to be named, I kind of told them my story a little bit, my age and so forth, and what I do. And I said, "Well, I really enjoy laser dentistry. It's kind of my niche." And then all these cool names started flooding, Dr. Evil. And, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. It'll be great. Laser doc." And Tater Tot says, No, calm down. He's already named. We've already got the other site queue named him. Your name is Chiclets. And it was kind of like, what? Chiclets? But the name's grown on me, and I absorb it like everybody else who said that they were kind of squeamish about it at first. But that's how I was named Chiclets. Yeah.
That's awesome. Sort of Kaki's revenge for, the resentment for his own nickname, right?
I think so. I think that's absolutely correct because I remember when he got named, I said, "What's your name?" He's like, "It's Khakis," and I was like, "What?" He's like, "The commercial, State Farm," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, yeah, yeah." But your name grows on you, and would I want anything different? No. I think I love what I'm named, and it is what it is, and it was meant to be. So
I feel like you've got to kind of embrace the name, or the people that don't, they just don't make it, right? I think the example I like to use is we had someone named Ariel that just never came back, and I hope he does come back. And I don't think we've ever done any revisions on names. I don't even know if that's allowed, but you got to kind of own it. Otherwise, you're in for a tough time.
yeah,
So what did you think of the first workout? How did that go?
I had prior to that, I was always at the gym, and getting up that early wasn't a problem for me because that's when I worked out anyways. I always hit the gym at 5 o'clock or 5:30. So getting up and doing that wasn't the problem. The problem was interacting with other men, because typically when I went to the gym, was on my own, doing my own workout thing. So I thought the Murph was somewhat. I mean, it wasn't strenuous for me, but it was a little difficult because of the running and the pull-ups and the Merkins. I'm not used to doing that kind of like a cardio, workout and a military workout combined. So the first one was a little bit like, oh yeah, I can do this. And I actually posted every day that week. I can remember doing Paradise that Wednesday, and following up on the Oracle out at Boys Town on Saturday. And I thought it was great because I just showed up. I didn't have to think. And that was, a joy for me because usually I went to the gym and had to figure out what muscle group am I going to work on today? What am I going to do today? I got to get cardio in, so I'm going to go run on the treadmill, do this. So, I really enjoyed the fitness aspect of it, because I just showed up and there was someone that was leading, for that day.
People can't see this because it's an audio podcast, but you look like you're wearing one of those inflatable muscle suits most of the time, and you're
whatever,
a fairly handsome guy, right? And so you've got everything. You got your own practice. You got
right.
Things going for you. Where were you at? Just in terms of life that made F3 appealing? I mean, what was it that kind of hooked you? Because to start on a Murph and then keep going every day, there must have been something that intrigued you or brought you back.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. I think what intrigued me was, I work with women all day. It's kind of like you play, and I kind of brought that into a couple COTs where, I'm at home, I go to work, I'm with women all day, and it's kind of like I'm the captain of the ship there. So there's a lot of responsibility. I've got to make decisions. You come home, you're the man of the house. So for me, I think it was just being around men that had similar, we all have a common theme amongst us. I always say that in my COT that, we all share something common. And I think just being around men, to hear other men talk, to share their life stories, to kind of listen to who they are, but also they would listen to who I am and to engage in a conversation rather than just go and work out and listen to your headphones. So for me, what I really enjoyed was just that, engagement and conversation with men that were of the same right, mind and body and spirit.
Hey, you had one back blast in particular, and I was able to find and pull up, and we'll talk a little bit more about some other stuff, but you tend to reference scripture a lot, which I think is really important. But the comment you made in this COT, this was back in at the Oracle, looks like back in September last year, but you commented, "Vanity is vanity, whether young or old, fit or unfit, successful or unsuccessful, whether you live in $1 million house or an apartment, rich or poor, we're all going to die. You have nothing that matters at that time other than those you love." And so I think just building those relationships, something that I see through all your interactions, you're always bringing that curiosity, like trying to learn about other people and then adding some wisdom from your experiences as well. where do you think, as you came into the group, obviously fitness, you were in a good spot. Do you feel like from a second and third F perspective, you were doing okay, or what are your thoughts there?
My that's absolutely correct. I felt that fitness was great. I already had that nailed. Where I was lacking was probably in the fellowship. Faith, my wife and I have been on a journey of faith, and it's wonderful when your wife, brings you alongside her along that journey, because she kind of saved me when we got married. And so, faith and fellowship have been instrumental with F3. The relationships, it goes back to, I wasn't doing any of that. My faith stopped in my home and at my church. And so now, I'm able to pray with guys or say, I'm going to pray for you. And obviously, being of the respect caliber, Pony, I go through life and there's a lot of wisdom with that. And, you really start to realize my days are numbered. Now, I'm not going to hopefully pass in the next 10 years, but, there's a lot of things that happened in my lifetime that I look back and go, you know what? Didn't matter what kind of car I drive and live in a big house. Didn't matter how much I make. We're all going to die someday. And what you leave behind are memories and relationships that are the most valuable thing that you can leave for your loved ones and those who were around you. So, what I love about F3 is that that friendship that you build with these men that, they know you, you know them. And it kind of goes back to, I always say that it's kind of like the days when I was in rugby, that you were at war on the pitch with these guys. Well, with F3, you're going through life with each other, and you're building these instrumental relationships that are just great and awesome, that you feel like you can contact anyone. Hey, I'm having a hard day. What are you doing later on? Or they can contact me, and it's kind of like I EH'd my father-in-law, Lincoln Logs, and, Lincoln Logs EH'd his other son-in-law, my brother-in-law, Mr. Miyagi. And, my relationship with Lincoln Logs has grown, and it's been great to see him and, pursue F3 and start to develop a better relationship with his wife and his own daughter, my wife. So, it's amazing to see how that just blossoms from just being at a workout in the morning, and being vulnerable with these men and sharing your story with them. That's just that's probably one of the greatest things that I enjoy about F3, is just to see the blossom of the relationship and love that comes out of it with the men around you.
And that's great. That's a lot of good stuff, and a lot to unpack, really. But I really want to focus on something you said. Hey, there is this element to F3 where you're putting men together with, a common thread, or whatever you want to call it, regardless of age or creed, whatever you are. And, I can speak to that personally. I remember you actually inviting me and my to church. And it's so strange how we work. You see people in the community, you don't even know their real names, right? So we go into church. Tony's invited me and my wife. She's like, hey, what's your first name again?
Yeah.
Introducing himself to my wife. I'm like, oh, I'm John. Yeah. Pony. Yeah. And, that is beautiful that F3 provides this opportunity for guys that are 25 years apart in age to grow, and not just the fitness aspect, but outside of that, in the third F element, right? You've been able to help me progress in my relationship with Christ in that third F. And, obviously we're hitting the second F too. So definitely pretty unique to have people outside of a working environment where you have such an age disparity, being able to relate to each other and pick up off of each other. I do want to say though, not just the age difference. There is an element of, the respect group, right? I know you're a part of the respect pop-ups. I know you give me some wisdom, being my elder. I guess, what is the dynamic like at that respect pop-up, and how do you take from them, like I take from you, I guess?
The respect pop-ups are great, because I do stay for a while. It's hard for me to stay for coffee time because I own the business. I got to get there and get everything going. But I make an effort for the pop-up, the Respect pop-ups to stay around. It's just great to hear other men of the Respect caliber talk and kind of shoot out some of their obstacles they're facing, or wisdom. You know, you never walk away from that without gaining an insight that maybe you didn't look at, where you can, you know, iron sharpens iron. And when you hear, you know, guys of your age talk about their life stories or life issues, or, you know, maybe, you know, make a notion to say, hey, you know, this is what we do at my house, or this is what I saw the other day. It's like, you know, I never thought of it from that angle. So it puts you in a different perspective. You might say something, you know, I never really looked at it like that from that angle or perspective. So, you know, the respect pop-ups are great because it just allows us, we're all the same kind of age, obviously, but gives us an opportunity to really kind of reflect on, we're all kind of that age group where our kids are older, some of the young kids like myself, but we're kind of talking about topics that relate to that time in our life and that moment. So it's another, you know, sharing of just life stories and saying, hey, you know, let's talk about this today, and kind of expand on that. And everybody has an input, everybody says something. It's just great to have the conversation. Yeah.
What you mentioned, you know, second F being an area of opportunity, but then also not having much time for coffee just because you've got to get to work. And I think a lot of guys identify with that kind of scenario. What have you found other opportunities to be effective ways to build on a second F, or just guys in the neighborhood, or how have you overcome some of those challenges?
I would say that's probably the F that I am my weakest component, because you know, my schedule's busy. I hate to use that as a crutch or an excuse, but, you know, when I'm in private practice, I teach, you know, for instance, I teach today at 1 o'clock. Then I have an all-day laser training at my office tomorrow from 8 to 5. That leaves Sunday. So it's hard for me to go and hook up with guys, you know, for lunch. And even when we do the shield lock, it's hard to gather. Like, I'm kind of a crutch with that because there's only certain days that I can meet. But I'm hoping that as I mature, I let some things go. You know, I think that's some wisdom there, saying, you know, you can only take on so much. And I could, even though I love to do what I do, at some point in time, I've talked to samples about this, that something's going to give, something's got to give, because you can't go at this speed your whole life, and you have to let something go so you can gain something. Meaning I have to let maybe teaching go so I can gain that time to spend more time with my family. Maybe I can spend more time meeting up with F3 at lunch, to free up my Fridays. So, you know, I would say my fellowship amongst the men, amongst my family, is probably one of the obstacles where I'm probably my weakest component, that I really would love to enjoy more of, but it's a matter of me kind of giving up what I have. And that's kind of selfish of me. But for now, it's kind of just where I'm at in my season of my life.
Well, I feel like you're taking some steps there, right? You realize that you want more of that, and you're kind of identifying why you possibly don't get to indulge in that second half. But you're also using it and like putting yourself in a position by using the tool of like the shield lock, right? You're trying to get more of that. And maybe you can kind of speak about that, not necessarily like who's in your shield lock or anything like that, but how it has helped with your second half, and I guess how it works for you.
You know, the shield lock was something that I was a little bit skeptical about when I was approached with it, because I was like, wow, how am I going to squeeze this in, you know? But again, it was an open door. It was an opportunity for me to be a little bit more, because certain things you don't share amongst a group. I may share a lot with you guys, but I may not share as much with someone I just met. So the shield lock was a time, an opportunity for me to meet and really kind of get down to the dirty, and you know, really kind of say, hey, you know, call people out on certain things, or say, you know, you're not that bad a guy. I mean, I'm experiencing the same things, you know. So it's an opportunity for me to be more specific on certain issues in life that we all face at this time in our life. And I was able to open up, you know, about RMs or, you know, things going on with your children, you know, kind of, you know, I was at Golden Spike this morning, GTA, who did an awesome job on his VQ, by the way. You know, he said this is a privilege, and it's absolutely correct, you know, and he did say that, you know, and I want to emphasize, because for me, I feel a very high importance of this is, you know, if it's not right at home, it's not going to be right at anywhere else. And so you got to have it right with your wife, your M, you got to have it right with your kids before you can go out and say, I'm a high impact man. Well, you got to be a him at home before you can be a him on the street. And, you know, I've always felt that. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of days where, you know, when I was going through a divorce years ago that I didn't have that relationship with that person. And I was miserable. And it affected the way I looked on life. It affected the way I did my job. And it's amazing how when you have that comfort of being a huge importance at home where you're respected and loved, that it carries you on to that, you know, when you go post and you can share that with men and you can really kind of see that in the men. And there's days where maybe it's not that great at home and it kind of reflects in your posting. You're quiet, you know, you're more timid, but those days are few. But, you know, it's all relevant to this F3, how it just really, you know, my wife says to me like, wow, you know, you're becoming better in so many different areas, you know, not just as a father, but as a boss, you know, as a presenter for the Laser, you know, and I do contribute that first and foremost to my savior, but also to F3 because he's the one that made it possible for me to be part of F3, you know, just to be able to go out and run. I mean, there's guys who can't do that, you know, or to get up that early, you know, that use that as a crutch. So, you know, I think it's just awesome to have that capability to keep expanding, to keep learning. You will always continue to learn. You'll always continue to open your heart and learn more. But you give and take, and that's what another great thing of F3.
I love that. And I think, you know, it's interesting, right? Because F3, we talk about the concentrica, we talk about, you know, your M is first and your kids. But then sometimes we put guys in a position where like they're choosing the workout over those relationships that we've told them are more important. And it's like, it's this really strange thing. Cause I tell myself that sometimes where I'm like battling my ego, like, well, I got to go work out and show Chiclets that my biceps have gained, you know, some size, but I also need to support my M and, you know, and it's tough. And I think that's where like, just knowing that the guys, something that was helpful for me early on when I was like, hey, I got to cut back on posting because it, you know, I need to support my M, was guys were like, you're doing the right thing, you know, by doing that, like being out there with us one more morning versus being home with your wife, you know, the workout is not your priority, right? Your family is. And I think having that validation from other guys was really helpful. And just hearing you talk through that, Chiclets, you know, we're all in different places with our kids and our wives that some of us can post every day and that works from a schedule perspective and other people can't. And I think just knowing like, whether you're out there every day in physical form or not, you're still a part of this, you know, community that we have going on. So I appreciate that. Yeah. I wonder, you know, would you talk a little bit about, you know, as you kind of elaborated on the second F, one of the things that where I see you, and I feel like we've connected from a second F perspective, are like at some of the Bible studies, right? So kind of pairing like third F and second F, and even at like a pre-run where, you know, it's not a separate like lunch or like second F event, but it's still been a time where we've connected on a second F level. Have those things been impactful for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I definitely do more pre-runs than I ever have. I used to maybe do one a week. I used to try and do it at the woodshed, but Pony just can't keep up. I don't know what the deal with that is, but anyway, yeah, but you know, the pre-runs are great.
I'm 30 now. That's what.
Yeah, I know. No more hate. You got a baby coming, so I'll give you some grace. I'll give you some grace, brother. You know, the pre-runs are great because they're great one-on-one times, and I've had some great conversations with you, Plague. I've had great conversation. few weeks ago with John Claude. And, you know, it kind of just depends. Vandalay and I have had some great conversations. And it's just, again, it's just like getting down and just saying, hey, what's on your heart, man? You know, what's going on in your life? How was your week? And that I value because, again, you know, when I go to work, it's a different dynamics there. And I can't really sit down and say that with my staff because it's, you know, they're women. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not prejudiced. I'm not degrading that. But it's a different, you know, kind of relationship there as well. So, you know, I have enjoyed the pre-runs and you know, even just posting sometimes and being partnered up with someone and getting to know them have been great times, you know. But, you know, we all do share that common theme, and it you know, they come out in different ways at different times. And, you know, men are men. We're all created equal. We all have different, you know, upbringings, but we all share a common theme, you know, more than just being a man. There's just a lot of common themes that we share that I can really appreciate and recognize and utilize, you know, selfishly. We do F3 because we get something out of it, but we also give to it as well, you know, which really I posted outside of Omaha. I was in Carmel Valley, California, and posted somewhere, and it just was a different sense of brotherhood there. It wasn't, you know, the fitness aspect wasn't as intense. I'd say we're pretty powerful on that. But even just the caliber of, you know, communication and just, you know, the sense of belonging together and getting through this together as a workout and promoting each other. I think that's unique to Omaha. I haven't posted anywhere else, but I've heard that it's very unique to our city, and it's really taken off, which is great. You know, which I do love, but again, selfishly, I would love to go back to the days where we had one side a day instead of having 3 or 4, because you know, but it, you know, it's hard to keep a good thing small, I should say.
You know, that's a good segue into your leadership role. You were pretty instrumental in leading the district, so the Murph site with Greek Freak, and you know, I think it's an interesting site because it's the same workout, right, every time, except for when you lead, of course, because then you change it out and do something like hand release Merkins or something ridiculously hard. But what was your experience leading that site? I mean, how did you feel? Just sense of responsibility, or what did that feel like?
You know, I did feel a huge sense of responsibility because I think, you know, I've been in F3 now. August was my 2 years. So I don't think I was quite, you know, maybe a year at that time. And it was handed to Greek and I from Tater Tot and Khakis. And that was an honor to get that from Khakis, who I love and respect, and the guy who EH'd me, and especially Tater, you know, our Nantan. But I did feel that it was a big responsibility. I really enjoyed it. Embraced it, and you know, I think that after doing it every Monday, you know, I did want to mix it up, so I would kind of do things a little bit different. I think that's kind of the fun part of it, that people sometimes think like you just got to do the routine. It's kind of like I think it was last week I queued there, and I did everything in reverse. So the run was in reverse. You know, we did the air squats at the beginning. We did, you know, instead of every even numbered doing core, we did an odd number. So I really mixed it up. I even confused myself at one point. You know, I was like, wait, where are we at? So, you know, and that's okay. That's good. Let's break the monotony of this. You know, this is life. Let's do it and you know, enrich and just enjoy it and be different, you know, make it different. And so I just thought being a site cute for the district was just a great opportunity for me to mature as well, you know, to be in that leadership role, because I think it changes you as an individual, not just amongst F3, but elsewhere, where you take on more responsibility. You just become more vulnerable to becoming better.
I could not handle that. I love routine so much. So it stresses me out just hearing you say we did it all backwards. You know, so we do, you know, kind of a newer thing as our you know, listening audience grows. We've been getting some questions submitted from the audience, and they specifically said, you know, when Chiclets is on the show, will you ask him how he stays so fit at 50? I mean, is he, there are kind of some yes, no questions. Is he doing steroids? That was a concern and a question guys had. So I don't know if you could do some myth busting or maybe give some advice. How does a guy like me prepare to be in your?
You know what? It's funny you guys always say that about me, and I look at myself and I'm like, I'm just a man. I'm a simple man. I always say I'm a simple man, but I mean, I've been working out since I've been 20, and I think maybe that's the thing, is that I've been religious about going to the gym, cardio. I used to go to the gym and I put probably 20 pounds on of muscle, and doing F3, I probably lost some weight, leaned up. But I don't see myself as being, I can look at someone else and be like, that guy's just as fit as me. I eat well. It's not like I watch what I eat. I don't eat a lot. I don't eat fast food. My diet is pretty simple. My wife cooks, we eat a lot of home meals. And I don't fast. I'm not a big breakfast guy. So I don't like to eat big, morning breakfasts. I might have a bar or something after and eat lunch. But I splurge on my weekends. I might gain like 3-4 pounds on a weekend, and by Friday I'm back down by 5 pounds. So it comes and goes really quick for me. But for me, doing the IPC was something that I really pushed myself. And I want to say this, that a lot of guys, I'm not bringing up for my sake, but a lot of guys were congratulating me for where I was at, and I was like, that's great, but it's not really that important to me. What was important to me is I reached those levels because of you guys. If I would have done that on my own, I don't know where I would be. But I wasn't doing it for me. I was chasing guys like Greek. I was chasing Smash Mouth. I was trying to compete with those guys, and I think that's what F3 is about. And so seeing someone maybe who's fit like me at my age, is it possible? Absolutely. I mean, I think if you guys stay on this track, you're going to be 50 before you know it. And you're going to be exactly looking like you are now. And then be like, wow, you look great. What's the secret? Well, I just, I work out. And that's the key, is just maintaining that and not stopping, just continue to work out like you are and maintain that path. But do it so to fulfill your mental, advancement and clearing your mind, but also spiritually as well, which is great about F3.
And I will just say
like a really good rehearsed answer, but I didn't hear where you talked about your schedule of your dose of TRT or steroids. Like when that actually happens.
That's because if you saw my ass, you'd probably see a bunch of needle marks all over.
Well, that's why this is an audio podcast.
Yeah. I can say it right now, but
I can vouch, when we're at a meal gathering and Pony and I are asking each other, is this my third or my fourth cookie? I look over at Chiclets and he's had 0. He's not indulging in the sweet.
I mean, I don't do steroids. I used to take a lot of supplements. I'm just, it's what I put in my mouth is what's going to nourish me the best. And so I avoid fast foods and certain foods, but weekends I do indulge. That's why we work out during the week. So yeah.
That question was actually submitted by Khaki, so we'll have to. I'm kidding. Nobody's submitting questions. Anyway, I do also want to just talk a little bit more about the faith piece, because I know that's really important to you, and I think as guys are getting ready, kind of end of the year, looking at ways to grow next year. We've got this impact retreat. We've got multiple book studies, Bible studies, Q Source. Where do you feel like you've put your time, or maybe a discipline that you've put in place to grow in that area? Do you feel like there's some wisdom there you can share with us?
I think that's a spot where I'd probably, coming on to 2022 and New Year's resolution, is probably going to be at the top of my list, is to spend more time in faith. In the book, amongst prayers and being more involved with the community. and just kind of living, living according to what you preach and believe. And so I'm hoping, again, it kind of ties back to what I said. I got to give something up so I can engage more in that. I am very, faith built. I've always have been. But I do see the inadequacies of where I'm not giving to those around me or to what I can because of other things that I'm, engaged in, and that's being selfish. So it's a moment where I have to really kind of look deep in my heart and kind of find time for that and give up some things and promote it elsewhere.
How do you work through that though? Because like I deal with the same thing. I'm motivated a lot by selfish desires, and I think I don't know if you've learned anything along the way. Just because obviously your self-awareness is really high. Those areas, but what's the next step? Have you found anything that really works, or is it just something to struggle through together?
I think it's first realizing that, it is selfishness, but in a sense, you can make that selfishness a good thing. So, in where I'm engaged at, giving back to school, for instance, me teaching, I do love to teach, and I do allow students to come shadow me and let them learn from me. And that's kind of my giving heart, that I would say that, I'm someone who loves to educate and share my wisdom. But for me to actually make a plan, I think it just comes down to, deciding, hey, I have to give something up. And my Em and I both know that my teaching probably is the first thing that I'm going to give up. Obviously I can't give up working, and I'm not going to give up F3. So, teaching is one of those things that I just have to probably draw the line and say, after next year, I'm going to be done teaching, or I maybe give up half a day of teaching and slowly kind of phase out to where, it's done. And that frees up time for me to go engage in faith and fellowship amongst those around me. Yeah.
It's something kind of hidden between the lines there that I heard you say is there's a conversation with your M about those things that you're spending your time doing. I think a lot of times that's where I've gotten in trouble is I create my list and then I if I'm not talking it through with her, then I start, devoting time to things that are not anywhere on her list, and they're just, then that becomes completely selfish. So if there's that conversation there, I think that's probably helpful. What other, we've come up with some new questions, and I know, Pony has been asking guys about advice that they would give. But anything from your perspective? I think we've talked about, what would you tell a new guy? What would you tell an existing PAX member? Or, what's something that you maybe have heard from others that, was advice to you that has been helpful?
I know that a lot of the guys have said, what's your advice to an FNG? And a lot of them are just saying, just come out and just do it. And I think that's great advice. There's nothing wrong with that advice. I think the advice that I would give to, current F3 guys and new ones, FNGs, is, hey, you know what? We're no different than you. And we're all vulnerable, and we're all men. And it's only going to excel you. So, if you're engaged in F3, continue. You can see it. You can reap the rewards of that. And if you're new with F3 and FNG, just trust the system. You got to look around and you go a couple times in post and you can just see how awesome the experience is, the COT, just the brotherhood. And we need that, especially nowadays with this crazy world that we're in. We need to have this sense of love and ownership amongst men, because we got to give that back to our homes and our community. And so where better to start that than being open to other men, so that you're like, hey, he's just like me. So yeah, I think just being vulnerable and just being open and just continue to do what you do.
Awesome. And sorry, Pony, for stealing all your questions, but
I think he left. I think he went to the golf course.
That's untrue. I am the hardest worker on this call right now. Well,
Love you, Pony.
Thank you. Love you. I certainly appreciate your time today. Any parting words before we wrap this up or anything?
You know, I think I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I being part of F3 for over 2 years now. It's been awesome. It is, everything has to be solid at home, I think, for you to really excel. I think it only adds to being a husband, a father, a member of the church, a member of community, a boss, a son. It only excels you in all those areas because it's the human experience, right? And it's the experience with other men that is going to propel you to be better in all those other areas. So it's not a negative thing, it's a positive thing. And it's not just a workout, there's something more to it, because that's what attracted me. If I wanted just to work out, I'd still be at the gym, but I was missing that companionship amongst men. And so that's, like I said, it gives back to you in every possible aspect that you could possibly not even imagine that it could do. So enjoy it, enjoy it and just reap the rewards.
I was just going to put a plug, I know you get quite a few kickbacks from this laser company, but I would just say from my personal experience, Chiclets is a fantastic dentist and has a fantastic practice. And if you're having a newborn or need any work done, I would go in and see this guy. I think the amount of compassion that we felt from you and your team and your was just, we left feeling like, wow, like those are great people. Not just like they did a great thing for our child, but like they're good people. So I can really feel your heart through what you do. So that's a cool way you impact the community there. So yeah, just grateful for you, man. And all
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, and thankful for you, Chiclets, for sure. Thanks for joining us today. Very appreciative of everything that you've done for both the Plague and I, in regards to our spiritual walk and fellowship, and then obviously kicking our butts on pre-run and the fitness aspect as well too. I would encourage any of those listening, any of the PAX members that haven't had an opportunity to meet Chiclets or speak with him in depth, please do so. Take the opportunity to reach out to Chiclets. He has a wealth of knowledge that he would be, more than willing to share with you, I'm sure, and he has a lot of love to give. And so I just encourage you guys, let's close out with Name-a-Rama. I am John Whitworth, 30, Pony Express.
Nay, Pony. Brandon Flehardy, 35, The Plague.
Tony Bowlfree, 52, Chiclets.
Chiclets, respect.
Chiclets, respect.
Nice job. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.